Hi and welcome back, strangers. This is my new video, and today we're gonna talk about how messy life turns into a messy art. And trust me, this whole process and even the finished piece is kind of a mess. Okay, so let me start with this. First of all, I tried to do some abstract art, this kind of background thing. It was just weird. I don't know, I didn't feel like it. It didn't motivate me to do anything more with it. So, after a bit of cleanup, I decided to just paint over. That's like the nice thing about painting. You can always start over because you can always paint over things. I did this kind of little bit watered down red. It looks a bit more pinkish, but trust me, it's red in the real life. And because I watered it down a bit, it made these kind of bubbles, which when they dry up, make a nice and unique texture and structure, which is also a good thing because again, it's something interesting in the pieces which I like, and I like working with it. After drawing, I did a pencil sketch, which I don't really do, and this also brings me to what I'm actually doing. Okay, so first of all, I've been trying to get better at portraits, and I've done a couple of them also, like on camera. These little charcoal, I don't know, ladies, you've seen 2 videos of me trying to, make them as pretty as possible. I'm not really sure if I'm succeeding, but lately I've tried to mix things up, and by mixing things up I mean literally mixing charcoal with acrylic paints. I like these kind of, like, as you've seen, abstract touches in many of my pieces, so that's what I'm doing. First of all, I layered the charcoal base and tried to make another normal portrait. I did 2 of them off camera, where I just tried will it even work, and it did, and I really liked it. So that's why I decided to do this one on a bigger piece of a hard board. I use a wooden board for the bases, and I also recorded it. But yeah, this one didn't turn like the rest. I have no idea why, but with charcoal, as you may see, working on a different surface is a little bit difficult, because on a paper usually you don't lift that much of the charcoal powder, but here I had to fix it after every layer, which, like, it worked on the smaller pieces, but here it was just so hard to establish the highlights and the shadows. I really don't know why, like what I did wrong, because I just did everything the same, like the process, like after every layer, fixate it, let it like dry up, but it just, I don't know, it didn't work. And also, yeah, the charcoal pencil for the details, yeah, you can say bye to that, it doesn't work. I have no idea why. It just scratches the surface and doesn't really like stays. I have no idea like why doesn't it work, but with these portraits on these hard canvases I had to use only like the charcoal sticks. And again, you can see here how I tried to lift some of the pigment up with the rubber, but it just didn't work. I have no idea why. So after adding some hair, I tried to make it better, and it wasn't looking like terrible, but also didn't look really nice, honestly. Like, I can see it, yeah, you don't have to sugarcoat it, it just looked weird. So at this point I just like started to think, okay, what can I do to, I don't know, at least try to save it, or what can I do to experiment? So I wanted to try this actually, what will the water do? The idea was for it to lift the pigment up and make like lighter parts of the painting, and I don't know, maybe start a bit over. That didn't work. Also, don't ask me why. And this. Yeah, this was exactly the moment where everything turned, like, there was no point of return, okay? I try to use a smaller brush to lift the paint, not the paint, to lift the pigment, but I lifted everything, including the paint. So I scratched it, like literally I scratched, and the white you can see, these are not painted highlights, it's scratched up paint, and the white was the color of the board I was painting on. So yeah, that's what I just went with it. Like, why not, honestly? Yeah, and it started to become, as I said, really messy. I had no control over the paint scratching. Like, yeah, I used a smaller brush, for example, on the highlights in the eyes, but there was no kind of structure to it. It doesn't work as highlights, you can see, like, clearly. At some parts, yes, I used it as a highlight, but at other, it just adds a texture. And even in the background, yeah, then the background started to be, I don't know, on the same kind of layer as the foreground, which isn't good because you always wanna, I don't know, like push it back a bit because it's a white background, obviously. Yeah, it was weird kind of at this point. I used again a red paint to try to salvage it and paint over some of the bigger chunks. For example, on the forehead, it just didn't look right. Also the background, I tried to paint over the background a bit. I used also white paint, didn't work. I wanted to again add some highlight or maybe even wash down the pigment, didn't work. And at this point it was just like, what the heck, okay, let me scratch it up more. Here I used a spatula, and the idea was actually to scratch down more paint because like I liked the texture, it was again something new, something interesting, and to then add more paint over the scratched areas, at least in some of them. With this spatula, I think I kind of overdid it, especially on some places, like the mouth. I really don't like the mouth, how it looks. It looks almost like cartoon-ish. Not only in the shape itself, but like the highlighted parts. And this is what I used. Yeah, I used blue. Again, as I said, the idea was to paint over the scratch parts for the paint to be more opaque. Did it work? I don't think so. not really as I wanted. I used blue, and in my head, like, first of all, that should have been only for the shadows and the dark parts. Then I wanted to use yellow for the highlights. It doesn't look right. I know it doesn't. Again, I went back and forth with the scratching and with the painting. I also had to let every kind of layer dry before painting over it, and I just got a little bit frustrated over time because it didn't look right, like it didn't look nice, honestly, and you want the pieces to look nice. I had a bit of break, and then like the sun went down again. I always take too many breaks with painting, so this is why the light changes so drastically. And the idea was again to kind of fix it with some black lines. Yeah, you can add like more shape to it and it could be nicer, right? It wasn't. Like at this point my frustration was like so bad. Not even the white highlights helped. It looked just scruffy. I don't know, it didn't look nice, honestly. Like there were some parts I liked, but it wasn't nice. And that was the end of the night. I was tired, I was a little bit angry. I didn't want to scratch most of the paint off. So that brings me to the next day. This is the aftermath of my trying. And honestly, this is it. Like, this is the piece I came up with. Okay, so the parts I didn't show you because I had honestly no energy and no temper for it. I went back to the painting with a spatula and lots of paint. And this is what came of it, these big paint splatters. Because they are so big, it kind of ties the piece together and it's not that scratched up. I like some parts of it, like again, it has nice real details, but yeah, this was it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you like the piece more than maybe I do. I would be really grateful for you to give thumbs up to this video, subscribe and leave a comment. I'm really curious if you like it or you dislike it, because honestly I'm still not sure. And yeah, see you in the next video. Bye!